Yeah, the, the, the thing that's most prepared me for the process of adapting my own work is working in television, working on television dramas, which are very story-led, always have to be very gripping, always have to be focused on the story rather than, discursive character stuff or observational stuff. When you work in television, you become very tough about throwing things away, about discarding material, and that's certainly something you have to do. I've had to do in adapting my own work. The emphasis always has to be on the story, always has to be on moving things forward. When I've worked on classic novels, for instance, like Tess of the D'Urbervilles or Great Expectations, there's a different set of priorities. I'm a little bit more objective about material. The role feels more editorial. It feels more like a craft, if you like, choosing what to cut, shaping the material. Clearly with those books, because they're classics and they're so well loved and the stories are so well known, you have to be pretty faithful. With my own material, I think, even though certainly I take on those jobs with the intention of being faithful, but I also have to accept that there are things that just work on the page but just won't work on screen. So inner monologues, letters, stuff which is observational or humorous but doesn't really move the story forward, that's the stuff that has to go at the first pass.
Yeah. So you almost have to look at it in a sense as if one day had been written by somebody else.
Yeah, you've got to try and be objective. Obviously, there's a tendency to feel that because you've written a book, because you know the book better than anyone else possibly could, that you should have final say, that you should be kind of the boss. But I think having an objective, having other people collaborate and state a point of view and express their own feelings about what they feel isn't quite so important on screen as it is on the page. That's an inevitable part of the process. In other words, you can't constantly pull rank and say, well, it worked in the book. You have to accept that some things that you love, some things that you relate to very personally, aren't necessarily going to make it to the screen.
And in doing the screenplay, were there points where perhaps you looked at, you're coming along and you have to make this sort of streamlining decision, and then you say to yourself, it's like, wow, that actually was better. Why didn't I do that the first
time? Not so much with this one, but certainly with my first book, Stand of 10, which I adapted into a movie. There was a terrible piece of plotting in the novel. A whole new character suddenly appeared out of nowhere to play a very important role in the plot, when actually it was much better to use one of the characters we'd already come to know. So it was great to be able to go back and correct that mistake, that error in the plotting. With One Day, it's been much more about selecting the material. For instance, a large chunk of the first third of the book for Emma, the character of Emma, concerns her inability to get motivated, find a vocation, find a job, find a nice flat, find a boyfriend. That takes up a pretty large section of the novel. But on screen, it's a little repetitive. It's a little static. It's a little passive. It's very, in other words, it's very hard to dramatize apathy. Very hard to dramatize someone being stuck. So you have to be far more deft and economical with that kind of material. You have to establish her state of mind and her situation, and then move on to stuff that is more active, stuff that gives the movie, I keep saying stuff, material that gives the movie more forward momentum.